As soon as a conflict erupts, shocking stories flood the web, exaggerated, twisted, or downright made up. But when it comes to Russia, the stories are a different breed. They might be embarrassing, they might be hilarious, they might even make you question your own sanity, but they are 100% true. You might not believe the things the Russian military has done, but they've done them all right. Here are 25 Russian military facts from the Ukraine war that seem fake but are 100% real. Number 1. Russia lost its flagship to a country with a super small navy. Russia's flagship, the Moskva, was supposed to be an unstoppable force, an 11,500-ton missile cruiser bristling with firepower and pride, ready to crush anything in its path. It was the crown jewel of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. And what did it do in the Ukraine war? Well, it got sunk by a country with basically no navy. At the time, Ukraine's only real warship was an old Soviet frigate that had to be scuttled early in the war. Yet on April 14, 2022, the Moskva, Russia's pride and joy, was struck by 2 Ukrainian-made Neptune missiles and went down in flames. The Russians tried to play it cool, saying it sank in a storm, but the truth couldn't be contained. Ukraine, with its tiny naval forces and some serious innovation, handed Russia its first flagship loss in over a century. Talk about a historic embarrassment. Number 2. Ukraine destroyed 1/3 of Russia's Black Sea Fleet without a navy. If you think losing one ship to a country with no navy is embarrassing, how about losing 1/3 of an entire fleet? Well, that's exactly what happened to Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Before the invasion, it had around 80 ships. Then, Ukraine's attacks wiped out at least 26 of them. With no large ships of its own, Ukraine used drones and long-range missiles to destroy Russia's prized vessels. To make matters worse for the Russians, some of these vessels got wrecked by something called a Sea Baby. Yep, that's right. Ukraine's 18-foot Sea Baby unmanned surface vessels had been wreaking havoc on the battered Russian Black Sea Fleet like it was a Sunday stroll. As a result, most of the mighty Black Sea Fleet fled before a country that didn't even have any ships. Ouch. Number 3. Russia's tanks exploded like fireworks. Fireworks from destroyed enemy armored vehicles on the land of the Ukrainian Donbass do not stop shining, said one Ukrainian brigade. And they weren't exaggerating. Russian tanks were literally exploding like fireworks. The culprit? Russia's old, poorly designed T-72 and T-80 tanks. These vehicles have a nasty jack-in-the-box effect when hit in a certain place. Their ammo cooks off, turning the turret into a projectile and the tank into a fireball. And we aren't talking about a minor blast. We're talking a massive, multi-ton fireball that could make any fireworks show look tame. It was unclear how Russia planned to win a war with tanks that were busy throwing themselves into the air. Number 4. Russia's military held a one-tank victory parade. For years, Russia's Victory Day parades were massive spectacles of military might, with dozens of tanks thundering across Red Square in Moscow. Their goal was to showcase President Vladimir Putin's mighty military, the second strongest in the world, as he claimed. The sound of roaring engines and the gleam of modern weaponry was supposed to make it clear Russia was a superpower. Then came 2024. This time, the Grand Parade featured just one lonely tank, a vintage T-34. This might have been a reminder of former glory, but certainly not a showcase of future strength. Not when tank losses surpassing 9,000 left Putin with little to show off. But hey, at least a World War II veteran had a nice little party all to itself. Number 5. Russia built fake wooden tanks to trick Ukraine. Seeing how badly their tanks were getting wrecked, Russia thought they'd get creative. In a desperate bid for deception, it built wooden tanks out of old armored vehicles, logs, sheet metal and rubber. The plan? To trick Ukrainian drones into thinking they were real military vehicles. And for a while it worked, kind of. These makeshift monstrosities withstood some first-person view (FPV) drone attacks. But then reality hit, or better yet, artillery did. A 100-pound shell trumps a few logs any day. In the end, the log tanks were immobilized, abandoned, and utterly useless. Just another brilliant display of Russian military innovation. Number 6. A Russian armored vehicle was stolen by a Ukrainian farmer with his tractor. This is undoubtedly one of those "this can't be real" moments, and yet no one has been able to deny it. At the start of Russia's invasion, a Ukrainian farmer made headlines for pulling off an absurd yet symbolic heist, stealing a Russian armored personnel carrier, an APC, with nothing but his tractor. A viral video captured the moment, a lone tractor dragging away the abandoned Russian vehicle while a desperate man ran after it. Social media exploded with millions watching and laughing at yet another humiliating Russian blunder. The best part? Ukraine's anti-corruption agency later declared that captured Russian tanks didn't need to be declared or taxed. Turns out for Ukrainian farmers, war loot comes with a free pass and a free tank. Number 7. Russian troops looted toilets. While brave Ukrainians were capturing armored vehicles on the battlefield, Russian troops were stealing toilets. Yes, really. In what has been dubbed Russia's special looting operation in Ukraine, retreating Russian soldiers were caught looting washing machines, televisions, and yes, Ukrainian toilets. But why? Because back home, many still rely on outhouses. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky summed it up best: let them take the toilet bowls. They'll need them on the road and go back home. Russia, a country that boasts about its global power, was sending troops so poor they were raiding bathrooms instead of military depots. The irony is brutal. Number 8. Russian troops dug trenches in Chernobyl. Here's another one to add to the "what were they thinking" list. Russian troops dug trenches in Chernobyl. Yes, that Chernobyl, the site of the world's worst nuclear disaster, where radiation levels are still deadly over 3 decades later. Ignoring Ukrainian warnings or just being clueless, the Russians camped in the infamous Red Forest, the most radioactive part of the exclusion zone, and even fished in contaminated waters. The result? Radiation sickness. Go figure. The Russian military calls it strategy. The rest of the world calls it suicidal. Either way, the only thing they conquered was their own immune systems. Number 9. Russia accidentally bombed its own cities. On April 20, 2023, a Russian Su-34 fighter jet accidentally bombed Belgorod, a city of 370,000 just 25 miles from Ukraine. The explosion left a 60-foot crater, sent a car flying onto a supermarket roof, and damaged a 9-story apartment building. 3 people were injured, but miraculously no one died. The cause? A discharged aircraft ordnance, according to Russia's defense ministry. In other words, they bombed themselves. And this wasn't the only incident in Belgorod. The May 12th one was far more deadly, with a Russian bomb killing 17 people. Now you might be thinking, twice? The Russians bombed themselves twice? Nope, it happened nearly 40 times in a single year, and that was just from glide bombs dropping on the Russian territory. It seemed Russia truly didn't care about who got hurt, as long as its senseless war keeps raging on. Number 10. A Russian cruise missile was shot down with a machine gun. While Russia was busy dropping bombs on its own people, Ukraine was downing cruise missiles with machine guns. On June 12, 2024, a Ukrainian soldier with a rather unique call sign, Dr. Mum, shot down a Russian cruise missile targeting Kyiv with nothing more than a machine gun. This was no easy feat. Serhiy, formerly a medic, fired at the missile with precision, watching it as it veered off course and crashed. What makes it even more impressive is that Serhiy used a standard machine gun, likely an RPK. And this wasn't the first time either. Earlier in March, Ukrainian forces shot down another cruise missile with a Browning M2. Who knew machine guns could even do that? Number 11. 6 Russian cruise missiles were downed by a single F-16. It seems Ukraine wasn't satisfied with pulling off difficult missions. The country was going for the historic, record-breaking ones. That's why Russia lost 6 cruise missiles to a single Ukrainian F-16 pilot. That's right, 6 in one go. On December 13, 2024, Russia sent nearly 100 missiles and 200 drones on a mass strike. But this brave F-16 pilot wasn't having it. Using a mix of medium-range missiles and, wait for it, the aircraft cannon, the pilot downed missiles flying over 400 miles per hour. Even US military officials were shocked. Number 12. A Russian pilot defected by flying his helicopter to Ukraine. While Russian pilots were busy making history, Russian ones were defecting to Ukraine. In August 2023, Maxim Kuzminov, a Russian Mi-8 helicopter pilot, took a dramatic step by flying his chopper straight into Ukrainian territory. The mission was carefully planned with Ukraine's intelligence, and Kuzminov managed to land without alerting the Russian authorities. He was rewarded with $500,000 for bringing the Mi-8 and valuable fighter jet parts to Ukraine. Unfortunately, 2 of his crewmates, unaware of the plan, were killed during the escape. Eventually, Kuzminov met the same fate after being shot to death in Spain in February 2024. Though he paid a hefty price, his life, his defection was undoubtedly a significant blow to Russia, leading to Kuzminov being hailed as a hero by Ukraine's forces. Talk about a twist of fate. Number 13. A Chechen commander fighting for Russia told his fighters to kill themselves. Russia despises deserters, that much is clear, and if it can't reach them to punish them, it does something like this. Russia's Chechen commander, Apti Alaudinov, demonstrated this chilling approach in September 2023 after Chechen soldiers from his Akhmat unit surrendered to Ukraine. In a bizarre and gruesome video, Alaudinov told his men that surrendering was a great disgrace and that they should do everything they can to get themselves killed. According to Alaudinov, the only way to wash away this shame was with their own blood. The commander's message came after Ukrainian forces captured over 100 Chechen and Russian soldiers in the Kursk Oblast. Alaudinov's callous words showed the brutal and twisted mentality of the Russian leadership, where human life is disposable, even among their own. Number 14. Russian generals keep getting eliminated. Here's a statistic that will make you raise an eyebrow. 21 Russian generals and 1 admiral gone, dead. Ukraine claimed it, but Russia admits to just 9. But even if the Russian figure was correct, it would still be wildly unusual. Losing 1 general is rare, yet Russia is out there losing top brass like it's part of the plan. How is this possible? Well, Russia's generals love playing frontline heroes, going way closer than NATO would ever let their brass get. Simply put, they were more exposed and easier to target. Plus, poor communication, hello unencrypted phones, made them sitting ducks. And if that's not enough, morale was in the gutter, so senior officers were often needed to force conscripts forward. Given that Russia has lost almost 850,000 troops in less than 3 years, it seems that this tactic didn't really work for anyone. Number 15, Russia's elite units were wiped out. Russia wasn't just losing generals at record speed, its elite units were dropping like flies as well. The Spetsnaz, once feared and revered as Russia's top special forces, were wiped out in record time. Satellite imagery reveals that all 5 of Russia's separate Spetsnaz brigades suffered devastating losses, with one brigade seeing only 125 survivors out of 900 deployed. These elite troops, who once showcased Russia's military might in conflicts like Chechnya, were sent to the front lines early to seize momentum, but instead they became targets. The 331st Guards Parachute Regiment, another top-tier unit, faced similar destruction while advancing toward Kyiv with over 40 dead, including their commander. In just days, entire airborne units, VDV, were decimated, leaving Russia with a special forces deficit it may take years to recover from. Number 16, Russia ran out of tires. In war, you expect people to get killed, tanks to get destroyed, and supply lines to be strained. But what you don't usually expect, a full-on tire shortage. Just days into the invasion, Russian convoys began stalling, not from battle, but because their tires literally fell apart. Years of poor maintenance and a lack of spare parts meant that the tires couldn't handle the harsh conditions, especially in the muddy Rasputitsa season. By the time Russia tried to move its military convoys toward Kyiv, tires were bursting left and right, leaving vehicles stranded and unable to advance. The situation worsened after Western sanctions kicked in, cutting off vital supplies from global tire manufacturers. Talk about a flat-out failure. Number 17, Russian troops had to buy their own equipment. Russia expects its soldiers to live and die for the country, but apparently it also expects them to buy their own gear while doing so. Want body armor? That'll be $1,200. A decent helmet? Add another $160. Boots? Expect to shell out $80, and you'll need 2 pairs. Need a Ratnik military kit? That'll set you back $575. So much for the record-high military budget, when soldiers are dipping into their own wallets just to survive. New recruits in places like Sverdlovsk were strongly advised to buy their own winter clothes, tourniquets, and first aid kits because the military-issued ones are, well, useless. So what's the Kremlin really funding with a budget exceeding $100 billion? Certainly not the soldiers risking it all on the front lines. Number 18, Russian soldiers were given shovels instead of ammo. Anytime you think it can't get worse, we promise you it can. In one of the latest chapters of Russia's military debacle, Russian soldiers were reportedly ordered to assault Ukrainian positions armed with shovels instead of ammunition. Due to a severe shortage of the latter, troops were sent into hand-to-hand combat wielding 19th century MPL-50 entrenching tools. Yes, that's right, shovels produced back in 1869 became the go-to weapon for desperate soldiers. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Number 19, Russian troops used Soviet-era maps. Add one more thing to the list of things the Russian military lacks: sophisticated navigation. Instead of using modern tools, elite Russian soldiers were caught relying on Soviet-era maps. No joke. In May 2022, during a battle near Hirsk in Luhansk, Russia's elite airborne troops found themselves in a tough spot. Their BMD-4M infantry fighting vehicle from the 31st Air Assault Brigade got lost and was ambushed by 2 Ukrainian BMP-2s from the 24th Brigade. Drone footage later revealed the soldiers of this elite unit pulling out an old paper map, trying to navigate their way, only to be hit with fire from Ukrainian forces. The result? The BMD-4 was destroyed, and the crew was later killed by bombs dropped from a drone. It's a textbook example of how poor navigation led to disastrous outcomes for the Russians. And this map wasn't even the worst of it. Ukrainian forces also stumbled upon a Russian map of the Chernihiv region with coordinates straight out of 1942. Yes, World War II vintage. When Russian troops pulled out of Trostyanets, they left behind this relic, complete with a 1990 version of the area, basically ancient history in military terms. Number 20, Russian troops used Google Maps to plan attacks. While not all Russian troops were relying on paper maps, they weren't exactly using high-tech either. When it came to strategic strikes, Google Maps was the go-to tool. In the lead-up to the invasion, researchers spotted a traffic jam near Belgorod, just before Russia's big military convoy rolled out toward Ukraine. This might have inspired the Russian military to start using this tool to its advantage. Rumors spread that Russian bombers were guided by painted signs on rooftops and digital markers on Google Maps. Some even used the tool to mark potential targets like hospitals and schools with edemus, meaning a funeral home. Talk about dark. Sure, Google acted fast to shut it down, but it's clear, for Russia, if it's free, it's good enough for war. Number 21. The Russian military cannibalized microchips from appliances. Microchips are at the heart of modern tech. Everything from missiles to fridges relies on them. But Russia's tech stockpile is seriously lacking. No surprises there. Sanctions have slashed the country's access to critical semiconductors by roughly 70%. So what's a superpower to do? Rip chips out of dishwashers and fridges, of course. In a desperate move, Russian military engineers cannibalized household appliances to scrounge up parts for weapons. It's ridiculous, but so is Russia's war effort. Who knew a dishwasher could be a weapon of war? Number 22. The Russian forces got raided by jet skis. The war in Ukraine has taught us that anything can be a weapon if it's in the right hands, even jet skis. In a daring raid on August 24, 2022, around 20 Ukrainian commandos armed with jet skis and a belief in God, as they put it, sailed across the Black Sea to hit a Russian electronic warfare station in Crimea. Their mission? Destroy Russian tech while raising the Ukrainian flag on enemy territory. The jet skis, gliding through rough seas and under the cover of darkness, crossed 125 miles to get to their target. The Russians chased the commandos with warplanes and Raptor patrol boats, but the Ukrainians escaped. It's not every day you hear about an elite special forces unit raiding with jet skis. But hey, Ukraine made it work, and it even did so on a few occasions. Number 23. Russian troops sabotaged their own boats. Most Ukrainian missions were described as daring and brave, but those two words seem to be missing from the Russian dictionary. Take the example of the Russian soldiers who sabotaged their own boats to avoid crossing the Dnipro River and storming its islands. Ukrainian resistance group Atesh claimed that troops were deliberately damaging engines, puncturing rubber boats, and even passing on coordinates to Ukrainian forces about Russian boat bases. All this as Russia reportedly gathered 300 boats for a potential assault. The Dnipro Delta is a crucial area in Kherson, but Russian forces seemed unwilling to fight for it. A little sabotage to save their lives? Maybe, but it's certainly not the bravado you'd expect from an invader. Number 24. The Russians are scared of a non-existent pilot. The Ghost of Kiev, a mythical Ukrainian pilot who supposedly shot down 40 Russian jets, was a legend born out of desperation and imagination. Initially hailed as a hero, the pilot's feats were said to include single-handedly wiping out nearly all of Russia's air force in the early days of the invasion. In reality, the story was pure propaganda, designed to boost morale. Russia had lost only 25 confirmed aircraft by the time the Ghost was supposedly taking down dozens, yet somehow the Russians were spooked by this non-existent pilot. The myth was so powerful that Ukrainian officials even fanned the flames by attributing it to Major Stepan Tarabalka, a real pilot, though he never racked up a kill count anywhere near 40. Even without evidence, fear of a made-up fighter plane ace had Russian troops shaking in their boots. Number 25. The Russian troops got injured by cat noises. In yet another bizarre chapter of the war, Ukrainian forces reportedly turned to a most unexpected weapon of all: cat noises. The tactic? Luring Russian soldiers into explosive traps with the sound of meowing. The idea seemed to play on the fondness many Russian soldiers reportedly have for cats. One commander, Leonid Otdonov, shared that when the Russians would open the cupboard to rescue the poor kitten, they were met with a deadly surprise. While there's no confirmation of casualties, the tactic highlighted Ukraine's ever-imaginative approach to warfare. Using cats to kill invaders may sound absurd, but considering Russia's total losses, maybe a little feline misdirection was the least of their problems. And there you have it, 25 facts about the Russian military that might be hard to believe. Which ones did you already know, and which ones shocked you the most? We're looking forward to your answers in the comments section below.